us our keynote speaker, Kim Katrin Milan. And I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions regarding the keynote that you just gave us. Okay, so you talk about reframing or rewriting the golden rule, and you gave us an alternative thinking point where instead of treat those the way you want to be treated, we should treat them the way that they want to be treated. How do you think that this can be integrated into our everyday lives? And how can we show compassion and interest towards others' different needs without seeming patronizing?
I think there's a couple of ways that we can put into practice this idea of reframing the golden rule and treating people the way that they want to be treated. I think even in small individual interactions, my husband and I often joke about this, that, when I'm really upset, I really want a lot of attention. I want to be talked to. I want to be supported. I want hugs, but for him, when he's really upset, he really wants the opportunity to kind of go away and be by himself and take time alone. So if I was going to treat him the way I wanted to be treated, I would be treating him in a way that felt really unfair, that was smothering, that was uncomfortable. And if he was doing the same to me, then I would feel really neglected, I would feel abandoned. And I think that being able to recognize that even in small ways, in terms of the ways that we support each other, that we can just be more honest about asking questions like, what do you need, in order to make sure that we're giving people actually what they need, as opposed to doing what we want and using ourselves as that standard. And I think in general, when we think about something, for example, like people's pronouns, instead of just identifying one person that you feel like, oh, I don't know what your pronouns are, but being able to say like, oh, well, my pronoun is she and her, what's everyone else's pronouns, so that you're not like individually isolating someone and making them feel strange or uncomfortable, but you're offering the same level of humility and that you're asking for from someone else. So I think that it really is about creating that opportunity of equity and saying that, we're all going to share the things that we need. We're not going to make that assumption. And then from that place, then people are better able to get what they ask for.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome.
So I guess secondly, talk to us a little bit about the roles that privilege and bias play in inequities. You talked a lot about privilege and bias that exist in today's world. So how can privilege, be it social privilege or cultural or gender-specific privilege, or even education-based, whatever, be addressed with the purpose of building better understanding around it without creating unnecessary segregation or discord? So how can we recognize that we have privilege or that somebody else has a privilege that is greater than mine, but without having negative feelings towards them, and without them maybe feeling negative for having those privileges?
For sure. I think identifying that you have privilege is important to get past that place of feeling guilty. Like, guilt is not useful, solidarity is. So I think that once you recognize that you have access to privilege, it just means that that's an opportunity where you can be more supportive of other people. So it can happen again in really small ways. So every time I get on a bus that's not accessible and I don't have any problems with access needs, I'm going to ask, like, how come there's no accessible buses on this route? Every time I see a form that only has space for male and female gender, as someone who's cisgender and doesn't ever feel like challenged or uncomfortable about gender issues, that's an opportunity for me to step in and say, maybe it would be great to open this up so that the gender form was just blank and people could write what they want to write. It's really about recognizing that the spaces that you don't experience oppression is really a space where you can be more supportive and act in solidarity with other people. And I think that, like, one of the things I mentioned was, privilege is often thinking that something isn't a problem because it isn't a problem for you. That, we may have our own experiences in lives and then not recognize that other people are having very different experiences at the exact same time. So I think that once we recognize that we have privilege, that's an opportunity for us to do a better job of listening to other people who identify that they don't share that experience, and thinking about what it looks like for us to share access to power. You can leverage your privilege. I think about all of the people in my life that I've ever worked with, like funders or people in organizations who have saw the work I was doing and used that to say like, oh, here, you can access this grant or you can access this opportunity. They have access to information or knowledge or connections experiences, and they recognize that they want to leverage those experiences and give me or give someone else access. And so for every time I've gotten the access, I think about how I can share that and how I can spread that, and I think it is really about recognizing that there isn't this scarcity model, that the more that we share and we create access for other people, it doesn't take away from our experiences. It actually just creates more opportunity, and it creates a relationship where people are actually able to be more connected to each other. I want to see people succeed. I want to see people, I've never had a problem when a friend of mine is doing really well. And I think it really is about recognizing that, when other people are getting to have other successes, that we should be able to celebrate that too. And recognizing your privilege is about knowing that you want to do that for other people, regardless of whether you share the same upbringing or background or cultural experience.
Great. Thank you. Do you have any other final points that you'd like to share? Do you have an overview of key takeaways from your keynote? Like if you had to sum it up into 3 major points that people can take away and think about kind of on a more daily basis, even just 3 snapshot phrases that could get us thinking and work it into our everyday lives on a more regular basis, that is.
Yeah, I would say for 3 things that I think are maybe overarching themes around sort of my keynote, definitely about, treating people the way that they want to be treated, creating the opportunity for really authentic dialogue with people who are different from you, making sure that you're learning about other people directly from them and having that opportunity to have real experiences with people who are different from your everyday lived experience. And I think also just taking the time to recognize that our privilege is an opportunity to be able to share power and access. And the more that we can create greater access for people in general, the more equitable world that we're creating for all of us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you for being our keynote.
Thanks so much.
It was lovely.